Bonjour à tous, c'est un grand plaisir d'être ici avec vous cet après-midi. I too want to acknowledge that today's conference is happening on the traditional territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh people, territory of the Tsleil-Waututh people. Today represents the next stage of the fin-fish aquaculture transition in British Columbia, and today's decision clearly adheres to the wild salmon policy. 24 years ago, British Columbians came together through a 5-year consultation led by then Fisheries Minister Jeff Regan to develop the wild salmon policy. The number one principle of that policy, which is still in place today, is that the conservation of wild Pacific salmon in their habitats is the highest priority in resource management decision making. Adhering to that principle and the precautionary principle is even more important today given the fact that we have seen a 50% decline in wild salmon stocks over the last 20 years. That follows even more significant declines since the middle of the 20th century. These salmon are not just iconic, they are an economic driver that has literally fed and built our province. We have a duty not just to protect the species, but to restore their traditional levels of abundance. 15 years ago, the Cohen Commission studied salmon farming in the context of the significant drop in biomass in sockeye salmon in the Fraser River. Recommendation 19 of his report specifically spoke to the potential impacts of salmon farms in the Discovery Islands. In the last 6 years, the transition has been fairly swift. Fin-fish licenses decreased from 112 active licenses to 66. Salmon farm biomass has decreased by 44%. This is in large part due to the removal of net pens in the Discovery Islands as well as the Broughton Archipelago. By summer of 2029, the entire west coast from Mexico to Alaska will be free of open net pen Atlantic salmon farms. While today's announcement will be well received by advocates for wild salmon, let us be clear, there's still a lot of work to do. A sustainable transition means investing in the future of sustainable aquaculture, yes, but also in the economic sustainability of remote and rural communities. It means continuing to advance Indigenous reconciliation, especially in communities that are directly impacted. There are significant opportunities in growing British Columbia's sustainable aquaculture industry through the Blue Economy Strategy, as well as restoring salmon habitat and the wild salmon economy. But that should not be the limit of our ambition. Our government continues to invest in rural community infrastructure and broadband internet access. It is our duty to unlock the massive economic potential that exists in BC's remote and rural communities. I heard about these concerns and opportunities when I conducted the first stage of transition consultations 4 years ago. 5,400 British Columbians participated in that preliminary consultation. I'd like to thank them, but also my colleague Finn Donnelly. Finn has spent his life working to protect BC's natural abundance, and he participated in every stage of that consultation as the province's Parliamentary Secretary for Fisheries and Aquaculture. Additional thanks to Minister LeBlanc, Wilkinson, Jordan, and Murray, 2 of which are here today, who have stick-handled this file in various capacities over the last 8 years, and to Minister Laboutier for her work to date and the very heavy lifting she still needs to do. Also, a big thank you to Patrick and all of our colleagues in Pacific Caucus who have worked so hard on this file for so many years. Our government knows that a strong economy and a strong environment must go hand in hand. And our commitment to ocean protection is without precedent. When we were first elected in 2015, less than 1% of Canada's oceans and marine areas were protected. And within 10 short years, by 2025, next year, we will protect 25% of our marine area, going up to 30% by 2030. We've invested in a world-leading climate plan and a comprehensive strategy to protect endangered whales, especially our southern resident killer whales, who, by the way, very much like wild Pacific salmon. Not to mention the historic $647 million investment in the Pacific Salmon Strategic Initiative. These decisions and investments are not easy. For far too long, we've turned a blind eye to pollution, leaving future generations to deal with the consequences. That approach is no longer sustainable, responsible, or tenable. British Columbia's greatest economic advantage is our clean air, soil, and water. And true long-term and sustainable wealth means maintaining that advantage while growing our economy at the same time. Today's announcement endeavors to do just that. Thank you. Merci.